Take it away, John.
Great. All right. Thanks, Daryl. And thank you all for attending today. My name is John Pillman. I'm one of the volunteers for the SCTC lab. And some of you I recognize from coming into the senior center, and I'm sure I'll see others in the future. Today we're going to talk about, so let me preface this by saying that before the iPhone, I think the iPhone came out around 18 years ago, as I recall. And before the iPhone, some of you might remember we had pretty simple phones. We had the flip phones, and then we had the big brick phones before that. And although they were limited in functionality, they were designed to make and receive phone calls primarily. They were very simple to use, right? They had a keypad on it. You dialed a phone number, hit the send, and you started talking to somebody. Well, that's all changed, right, over the last 18 years with the advent of smartphones and which is great. I mean, the things we can do on our smartphones today is just amazing, and I don't think anybody predicted we'd be able to do all the things that we can do. The downside of that is that as they become more complex, more and more people, I think are starting to realize, am I having trouble using my smartphone, or am I using all the capabilities? So the good news is that Apple, being the smart company that they are, over the years they've added features to the iPhone and to the Mac computers and to the iPads and even the Apple Watch. They've added features that allow people that have certain challenges. Maybe they're visually impaired, maybe they have mobility issues using their hands, maybe they have speech issues, maybe they have aphasia from a stroke or whatever. But there are features now within those devices that allow folks that have those types of disabilities or impediments to be able to use the devices successfully and get the most out of them that they possibly can. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go into some of those features. They're called accessibility features. And what I've prepared is a document, and I did this in such a way that you can take this document when we're done. You can go through it. You can play with it, try some things out. I'm also going to do another one of these in June. Daryl, do you remember the date in June that we're going to do the in-person one?
I'm going to say senior citizen. No, I don't. But we can
Okay.
we can we can check
Yeah.
for you.
It'll be in the Go magazine, but we're going to do one of these in the senior center. That'll be a 2 hour session. And since we get an extra half an hour, what I thought we'd do is maybe actually try a few things out since people will be there with their iPhones. The other thing I want to say is that this document and this session is going to really be focused on the iPhone. Okay. A lot of these features will also work if you happen to have an iPad, an Apple iPad, or a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, or even an Apple Watch. But I want to focus on the iPhone because that's what most people have. That's Most people get introduced to the Apple world through an iPhone. So we're going to focus on the iPhone. That's the device you carry with you most times when you're, in your day-to-day doings. So just want to let you know that I've got this focus today on the iPhone. Okay. Any questions from anybody before we get started? All right, then let's dive into it. Okay. Can everybody see this first page that says Apple accessibility?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So I thought we'd start out with what is Apple accessibility? What is Apple's definition of it? And I'm just going to read this. It's features, they're built-in tools that are designed to make Apple devices usable and enjoyable for people with diverse abilities and needs, including those with vision, hearing, mobility, speech, and even cognitive impairments. Our focus today, as I said earlier, will be on the iPhone, although many of these features also cross over into iPads, MacBook computers, and even Apple Watches. Okay. So if you go into the settings, it looks like a little gear on your iPhone. If you click on that and you scroll down, you'll see an accessibility section under accessories. I'm sorry, under settings. And within there are 6 different categories. Okay. Vision, physical motor, hearing, speech, accessories in general. I'm going to go into a couple of features. We just don't have time to go into everything. It's extremely rich. There's a lot of um, there's a lot of capabilities within each of these categories. We just don't have time. So I wanted to just pick out a few that I thought might be useful, and we'll go into each one of those. The only area I'm not going to touch on is accessories. And accessories, just so you all know, believe it or not, you can actually use an external keyboard with your iPhone, and you can use an external keyboard with your iPad, and certainly with your computer. So the accessory section there would allow you to connect and use an external keyboard. The other thing the accessory section has that's kind of cool is you can activate it where when you type in a message, let's say you're going to send a text message to your niece, you could, as you type in the text message, it will actually read the text message back to you as you're typing it in. So that might be useful for somebody that is not sure that they're typing in what they exactly what they want to say. You can have it read it back to you. Okay. So again, we're not going to go into that particular section, but I would encourage you to play with it. Pretty hard to screw up, and you might find something there that you might want to use later on. Okay. So the first section we're going to go into is vision. So within vision, one of the useful features of that is called zoom. And zoom, as it says here, is it's a feature that magnifies sections of the screen to make it easier to read. It's sort of like if you had a magnifying glass and you moved it across the screen. So maybe you're looking at a map, maybe you're looking at a website, maybe you're looking at some other application that you've got on your iPhone pulled up, and you want to zero in and see something with a higher level of magnification. Okay, so that's in a nutshell. So to be able to use that feature, you go into settings, that's the gear, you select accessibility, you select zoom, and then you toggle a switch to turn on zoom. Okay, so that's kind of step one. Once you've got zoom turned on, then how do you bring it up? Because it's not always active. So the way to do that is to double tap the screen with 3 fingers, or, and I'll explain this to you later, or you could use an accessibility shortcut to turn on zoom. Okay. So literally once zoom's turned on, if you take 3 fingers and let's say you've got a map pulled up, you do a double tap with 3 fingers and it will pull up a zoom window. Okay. That zoom window then, well, actually, before I say it, let me go through the rest of this here. Um, when you bring up the zoom window, one of the things I've noticed in italics here is that if you got to be pretty fast in your tapping. It's a little fidgety. If you're slow in the triple tap, it may not bring up the zoom window. It might bring up a zoom menu. Okay. And in the zoom menu, you can tell it to turn on zoom and then it'll bring up the zoom window. So just kind of experiment with it until you get the feel of it, because if you don't tap quickly enough, it may not bring you into the zoom window right away. Okay. So once you're into the zoom, a couple of things that are useful, you can adjust the zoom magnification. Okay. So there's a little slider bar that you can slide the zoom, just like if you had a more or less magnification on a magnifying glass. You can slide the zoom in and out. And you can also, by taking your finger, you can drag the zoom window around your screen. If you want to see magnification on a certain part of the map versus another part of the map, you can drag the zoom window around. Okay, just so you know that. All right, so here's an example where you go into accessibility, you turn on zoom. Okay, so here's was the zoom slider turned on. Okay, now you've got a couple of different options here, but the one that I would recommend you start with is called zoom region, and that's where it brings up a zoom window that you can slide around and just zoom in on particular areas of the screen. So that's called window zoom. Okay. So then you turn on the zoom, as I indicated. And then at the bottom here, there's a little white menu bar. If you touch that with your finger, it will bring up a zoom magnifier that looks like this. Okay, it'll bring up the screen. And then if you notice at the bottom there, there's a little slider bar where you can zoom in or you can zoom out. Okay, all right. And then once you do that, let me scroll back a little bit. Then this area that's in the box there, that will be magnified. And then, like I said, you can take your finger and you can move that around depending upon what area of the screen you want to see magnified. Okay. Any questions? Again, I would encourage you to play with it.
I
Go ahead. I think I heard somebody.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Patricia.
So, I when I clicked on the Zoom, it got so big that I have no idea where I am. It's completely filled my screen, and I can't get back to undo this. I mean, I can't even use my phone now because everything is so big that I'm only getting a few words, and I've lost
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yep.
huge.
So
Everything is
you can, yep. So let me double check. I think I put it earlier in here.
I can't I
I
can't
may not have, yeah, go ahead and I think um, double tap the screen with three fingers. So take three fingers and tap it on your screen two times.
Okay, I did that, but everything is so big I can't get to where I can adjust it. I can't find my way over to it. It says I see 98%. It's like I can't see what I'm saying. It's so
Yeah.
big.
Can you can you so what happens when you double tap the screen with three fingers? What does it do? Nothing?
It's taken me to what I see at the top is a little phone with a green circle around it, and it says 98%. But I don't know how to turn it back down so I can actually use the phone. Now it says 97%.
Oh, that would be your probably your battery level.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
everything is so big, I can't see where
Okay.
This
So
is Daryl's suggestion. Maybe we can troubleshoot that later after
yeah, let's
John
do
goes
that.
through, because I think this is going to take a minute. So,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll just
All right.
watch because I can't do anything with my phone.
Okay. Yeah, and just so I would encourage you to listen to the presentation and then try things with your phone afterwards.
Right.
Um,
I just want to be able to use it and then
yeah,
later I'd figure out how I can use it because at this point I can't use it.
yeah. Patricia, can you get to your home screen? I don't know what model phone, I don't know which version of an iPhone do you have? Do you have a home button at the bottom or do
No,
you
it's a
swipe?
14. It's a 14.
So can you swipe up from the bottom of your phone to get to your home screen?
Um, Everything is so big. So
Okay.
I
We'll
just
have
found,
some, hopefully have some time at the end, Patricia,
yeah,
and then we can, okay?
thank you.
Okay. All right. The next feature we're going to talk about, scroll down here, is display text and size. A lot of folks that I see in the senior center already use this feature, so I'm pretty happy to hear that most people do use this. But basically, it allows you to adjust the size of the text on the screen. So things like messages, email, certain applications, you can adjust the text. You can also, and here's just so you know where it's at. In settings, if you go to the vision section, display text and size, you turn that on. And then you have an option to bold the text to make it the contrast more dynamic. And then if you switch where it says larger text, then it gives you the option to increase or decrease the size of the text on your screen. Okay, so here's an example of that. So here's a calendar that's I brought up on my phone before I invoked the bold and the larger text. So you can see what it looks like. And then after I invoke those and I large it out and bold it, you can see where the February, for example, is bolded out. Everything's a lot larger on the screen, right? So it's easier to see. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. So I'm not going to go into these in any great detail, but there's a couple of other features under the vision section that you might want to play with. One is called Smart Invert, Classic Invert. And I used to use, so a lot of apps do this now, but I use this with I had a reading app. It wasn't Kindle. It was a different reading app on my phone. And what I found is that it by default displayed black text on a white background when I was reading a book. And that particular application didn't give me any other options. Kindle does. Kindle allows you to display, as an example, it will allow you to display white text on a black background or black text on a white background. Okay. But this other app didn't. What I found is this smart invert allowed me, when I turned it on, allowed me to, with that app, to display white text on a black background, which was great at night because it just wasn't blaring that white light in my face. And I found it easier to read a book at night. So that's one example where you could use that. It also does that for other things like viewing web pages where the text on a web page might be black and the background might be white. And it'll literally flip it around where it would be white text on a black background, that kind of thing. Another feature is spoken text. When this is turned on, you can swipe down with two fingers from the top of the screen. So let's say you're looking at a web page, as an example. You could swipe down with two fingers and it will start speaking to you all the text that's on the screen. So it's like somebody's sitting next to you, looking at the screen and speaking the text to you. So you can see where that might be handy if you're having difficulty reading the screen to have it spoken to you verbally. Okay. And that's very similar to VoiceOver as well. It will read aloud the selected on-screen text like a text or a button. Okay. So what that does is if you, as an example, and it's this one of the reasons I didn't go in a lot of detail is it gets kind of weird, but it could be kind of cool for certain people where when you are pressing buttons, like you're going to a particular app or you're pressing forward, like a forward arrow or a back arrow, it will actually say pressed forward arrow, pressed backwards arrow. So it will give you a verbal confirmation of what you actually pressed on the screen. Okay. All right. The second section we're going to go into is called physical and motor. Okay. And the one I wanted to zero in on first was touch. Okay. So you can activate touch by going into settings, accessibility, and then down in the physical motor section, pressing on touch. And then once you do that, one of the features that I really like that it gives you the ability to do is to enable features on your phone by tapping on the back of your phone. Okay. So if you press on that one on the section called back tap and turn that on, then it will bring up some options for you. When I tap the back of my phone, what do I want to happen? In my case, I've got the camera. So where this really becomes kind of neat is, let's say you've got a bunch of apps on your phone. You're like, I want to take a picture of the dog, but I can't find the camera app on my phone. Well, with this feature turned on, you don't have to look for the camera app. You could simply take your finger, double tap the back of your phone. It will bring up the camera app, and then you can take a picture. There are a couple of default apps that you can do this with. One of them is camera. Another one is kind of cool is flashlight. If you ever use the light on your phone as a flashlight, let's say you're trying to find the lock on your front door at night. You come home late, you're trying to stick the key in, you can't see the lock on the front door. You could double tap the back of your phone and have the flashlight turn on. Okay. So there's a couple of different options there that you can play with. Just so you know too, that there's a double tap. You'll see when you click on the back tap, there's a double tap and there's a triple tap. So you could have, for example, double tap to turn on the camera, but triple tap the back of your phone to turn on the flashlight. Any questions there? Okay. Well, we're going to move into another section that's really powerful called voice control. Again, it's under the physical and motor section. When you turn voice control on, which you'll notice here, there's a little toggle switch to turn it on. What you'll come up with is a section called commands. And what voice control is really good for is if you have some sort of mobility issues, maybe you don't have the use of your fingers quite like you'd like to have. You're fat fingering the phone a lot. You have some sort of mobility issues that allow you limited use of your hands, as an example. With voice control turned on, what you can do under this basic navigation, as an example, is you can tell your phone, you can literally speak to your phone, open mail, and it will literally open the email app on your phone. You don't have to go find the app on your phone and press a button. You literally tell your phone, open mail, and it will open your mail app. Or open a podcast, it'll open a podcast app. Open maps, open your photos. Okay? Now, I do want to say that some of these features, if anybody uses Siri, some of these features overlap with Siri. So with Siri, you could also say, hey, Siri, open my mail app, and it will do that as well. So there's some overlap. The reason that you might prefer this to Siri is some people don't like to use Siri, okay? And Siri does require a connection, at least for now it does, to be able to go up into iCloud to be able to execute that command, where all of these commands are on your phone. Even if your phone's not connected to the internet, you can still, or not connected to cellular, you can still use these commands. Okay? Just so you understand some of the overlap and what Siri can do, here's some basic controls that you can use with Siri as well. One is, what's kind of cool, is you can say, hey, Siri, turn up the brightness on my phone. Or, hey, Siri, turn on the flashlight on my phone. Or turn up the volume, turn down the volume, those kind of things. Okay? So I just to make it a little bit easier, I pulled up kind of the sequence to get voice command to work on your phone. So, what you could do as an example, making a phone call once it's turned on. So you could say, open phone, and it'll open up the phone app. You could literally say 303-495-3447, and it will type that into the phone app. And then if you say to your phone, tap call, it'd be like if you touch the call button, the green call button, and it will make the phone call for you. Okay? So again, I would encourage you to play around with it, see what you like, see what you don't like, but it's a pretty powerful feature. And by the way, if you don't like it, it's not working for you, all you got to do is turn off the toggle switch for voice command. It'll no longer listen to anything you say. Any questions there?
Yes, John, I had a question.
Yeah.
Instead of saying a number, could you say a person's name if that person is in your contact?
That's a really good question. And the answer that I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, Bobski, if you've played with that, if you've got an answer on that.
Well, you mean you can just say call Connie? Yes, it will do
You
that.
can. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And Connie, just so you know, you definitely can do that with Siri. So if you said, "Hey Siri, call Connie," it'll
Okay.
execute.
Sorry, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm not sure if voice command will do that, but Siri will definitely do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next section we're going to go into is hearing. And I can speak from experience because I wear hearing aids. I would say that within the last 8 years or so, if you've got a hearing aid, not all of them, but most of them with it built within the last 8 years or so, will connect to your iPhone. Okay. And so to play around with that feature, you go into the hearing section, and then you go into hearing devices. And in the case here, I've highlighted this box right here, this black box. That's telling me that it's connected to my hearing aid, and that's the particular model of hearing aid that I have connected to my iPhone. Okay. There's a couple of features there. I'm not going to go into all of them. But if you scroll down, once you tap on, let me scroll back up. Once you tap on where it says connected there, it'll bring up some additional features. And that's the screen right here. And one of the features it'll bring up is you can adjust the microphone level. If you've got presets on your hearing aid, I've just got one, but some people have them set to like noisy environment, or this one says TV adapter. If I wanted to play the audio from my television set to my hearing aids, I can do that. But the one I really like is called Live Listen. If you turn on Live Listen, most hearing aids built within the last, like I said, last 8 years, 7, 8 years or so, you can literally turn your iPhone into a microphone. Example would be, I'm in a restaurant, I'm sitting at a table, it's a rather large table, and there's people on the other side of the table that I'm having a hard time hearing with my hearing aids because it's noisy in the restaurant. If I turn on Live Listen, I could take my iPhone, slide it over to the other side of the table, and the iPhone microphone will pick up what they're saying and play it to me in my hearing aids so I can hear what they're saying. That could be a really powerful feature. Okay. The other thing, any questions on that? I'm assuming a lot of people that I see at the senior center with hearing aids, if their hearing aids are capable of doing that, it's amazing the number of people that have told me that they've already tried that feature and they like it. But any questions on that? Okay. I listed 2 more things that I thought under the hearing session that I thought you might want to try out that might be kind of cool. I personally haven't tried them, but when I read up and heard that you could do these with an iPhone as an example, I thought, well, that might be kind of cool. So one is sound recognition. So you can train your iPhone to detect certain sounds and then send an alert to your iPhone. So the example I used here is a dog barking. So you could train your iPhone to listen to your dog barking, believe it or not. It's a mode where you can have your iPhone listen to a dog barking. And then when you turn that feature on, if the dog barks, it will send either a verbal or a notification to your iPhone, or it will buzz your iPhone, where your iPhone literally will buzz in your hand. And that will tell you the dog's barking because maybe the dog needs to go outside and go potty. And the other one was a doorbell. You could train it to listen to a doorbell. And so if you have a hard time hearing your doorbell, or you're in a part of your house where you can't hear it, if your iPhone can hear it, if you got your iPhone sitting out in the living room, for example, here's your doorbell, it could notify you that your doorbell's ringing. Okay. And then the other one is live captions. And what this does is, think of live captioning on your television. If you ever use closed captioning, you're watching, the latest version of Fear Factor or whatever show you're watching, and it'll play, it'll play the text captions on the bottom of the screen. You can do that on your iPhone as well. So, for example, you're listening to a podcast or you're listening to a YouTube video. some video you're watching on your iPhone, you can actually have closed captioning where it'll display text of what you're watching and listening to on your iPhone. Any questions there? How are we doing on time? Okay, I think we're doing pretty good. Okay, the next section I'm going to go into is speech. And basically, this is a really good feature for people that have difficulty speaking or difficulty speaking clearly. Okay. As an example, one of my best friends has aphasia. He had a stroke years ago. And so there's times when it acts up pretty bad and he has a hard time. He knows what he wants to say, but it doesn't come out quite right sometimes. And I asked him one time, I said, where does that really get frustrating for you? He goes, one area it gets really frustrating is if I'm in a restaurant and I'm trying to order something to eat, sometimes I have difficulty. So I end up pointing to the menu item and saying, that's what I want, that kind of thing. But the iPhone can help with that. There's a couple of features. One is called live speech. And as it says here, when this is enabled, this is essentially a text-to-speech feature that lets you type in what you want to say and have it spoken out loud on the iPhone speaker. Okay? So you can activate live speech by either triple clicking if you've got a right button, well, I guess everybody would, the right button on your iPhone, you can triple click that to activate that feature. Or the home button, if you don't have the right click button, if you've got a home button at the bottom instead, you can triple click the home button. Okay, so I'm going to go into that real quick and show you. So if you kind of how that would work, right? So once you click that feature and turn on live speech, once that's activated, it'll bring up a little window where it says keyboard. And so in this case, hello, my name is John. When I type that in, and then I click the bottom right button where it says speak, it will speak on my phone. Hello, my name is John. Okay. So if I'm looking at a menu at a restaurant, I know what I want to purchase at the restaurant. I could type in what it is. When the waiter comes to take my order, I could click the button speak, hold the phone up to them, and it would speak what they say. Daryl, you got a question? I see your thumb's raised. Daryl?
No, I didn't click anything.
Okay. Yeah, somehow your thumb was raised. Your thumbs up was. Okay. The other thing, I'm not sure if I put it here, but I will say this. The other thing you can do with this feature is you can pre-record commonly used phrases. So if you are used to, I'll use the restaurant example again. If you're used to ordering the same thing, oftentimes at a restaurant, you could pre-record the phrase of what you want to order. And then instead of typing it in on the phone every time you go in, you could save that phrase with my favorite menu item, click on my favorite menu item, and it would then speak what the menu item is that you want to order on your phone. Okay, so you don't have to always necessarily type it in every time. If it's something a phrase that you use quite often, you can pre-record it. Any questions before I move on that? Okay. The last thing I want to say on this is, on this section is personal voice. So right now, if I use live speech as an example, there's a default voice that comes up that says what I want to order at that restaurant, for example. It's not my voice, it's just a default voice. And there's a number of different default voices that are pre-programmed on the iPhone to use. Some of them are American, some of them are Australian, English, different types of voices you can use. Okay. But one cool thing that the iPhone does allow you to do is use your own voice. So when you're talking to somebody and you've got those pre-recorded phrases, as an example, instead of speaking some canned voice to the waiter, it would actually sound like it's coming from you. It would use your own personal voice. Okay. There's a feature to make that work. There's a feature that needs to be activated on your iPhone. And then when it's activated, it walks you through a tutorial, more or less, that will ask you to record phrases. So it will ask you to speak certain phrases in your iPhone. It uses those to generate a vocal pattern, to generate your voice pattern, will then allow you to, or allow your phone to speak your voice or a facsimile of your voice for anything that you say to it, anything that you type in. So to do that, you go into create personal voice. And then I'm not going to read all this to you, but it walks you step by step through how to record the phrases and to generate a personal voice. Okay. Any questions there? Okay. Okay. The last section I'm going to go into is under the general section. And this one is really pretty cool. So one of the things that I hear sometimes in the senior center is, I get so frustrated with my iPhone. I'm thinking about just going to a flip phone because they're so much easier to use. There's limited options. It's not confusing. It's just so much easier to use. The other one I hear is, I'm going to get one of those jitterbug phones that I hear about because it limits my options. The screen's bigger, easier to see, doesn't have 20, 30 different apps like my iPhone does. It just looks like it's easier to use. Well, the good news is Apple has a feature that you can set up and activate called assistive access. The other colloquial terms I've heard used for it is senior citizen mode or flip phone mode. Okay. But the whole idea behind it is to put a screen, to create a screen on your iPhone that is really, really simple to use, more limited in functionality, yet gives you the functionality that a lot of people need, which a lot of people say, all I want to do with my phone is to make a phone call, maybe use the camera, and maybe send a text message. That's all I want to do with it. Okay. This assistive access would allow you to do that and even more once you set it up. Okay. So I'm going to spend a few minutes on this feature and show you how you can set that up. Okay. So the first screens I want to show you here, this is an example where assistive access was set up. And once it's set up, this particular user gets these options. They can make a phone call, they can use a camera, they can play music, they can send a message, they can look at their photos, and they can use a calculator. Okay. So as an example, let's say I were going to use the camera. So I click on the camera button. Then on the right hand screenshot, it would bring up the camera. And in the camera, it gives you one option, which is take photo, right? Pretty simple to use, right? And then once you take the photo, it gives you an option to go back, the back button right here. And when you click on back, it brings you to this home screen. For a lot of people, that's all they want to do. Okay. A couple other options, phone call. If you tap, let me slide back here. If you tap on the phone call app, it brings up a really simple interface. By default, what it does is it allows you to call people that are saved in your contacts. So the example here would be Mom, Tanya, Graham. Okay. But the other option that it can bring up is, let's say you don't want to call a contact, you actually want to type in a phone number, okay? So it brings you up the ability to use a keyboard to type in a phone number. It can also bring up an option for a video selfie. So if you wanted to send a video of yourself, you could send a video of yourself, and I think the bottom one there is probably an emoji. But those are options that you don't have to activate. You say, oh, I don't want to do anything with video. I don't want to do an emoji. I just want to send a call. I just want to make a phone call to my contact. And I want to go ahead and, I'm sorry, I just misspoke. Under phone calls, you can activate a keyboard. The right-hand screen, my apologies, is for the messaging app. You can send a text message to a contact. You can key in the phone number to a contact to send a text message. You can send a video, or you could send an emoji to your as a text message to your contact. My apologies. Okay. So enable that. And just so you know, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on enabling this when I do the session in June, because it is a little more involved. It does require you to set a passcode specific to turning this feature on. Okay. But in general, I just put down a couple of notes here in terms of how you would activate it. So to set it up, and by the way, you can set this up for yourself, and you can set it up for another person.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have you down as August for that presentation at the senior
Oh, I
center.
thought it was June. Okay. Is it August?
Yeah, so it's August 19th.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank you. In August then. So to set it up, you'll need your Apple account information. So you need your Apple ID and your Apple password. And again, that's because somebody could set up their phone for another person. Okay. So it's tied to your Apple account to turn. And then again, you would have a specific passcode to turn the feature on, turn the feature off. Okay. Once you set it up, you'll have options during setup, certain features that you can turn on. So you can make it smarter or you can make it dumber, depending upon the features of a camera app that you want to use as an example. You know, one feature might be, I want to use the camera app, but I also want to be able to use the zoom feature where I can have the camera zoom in or zoom out as an example. Okay. By default, these are the apps that you could have on your home screen when you set up assistive access. Okay. So I showed you a couple of these already: calls, camera. You could set up a browser, Chrome or Safari, so you could actually look at a website. Messages we already talked about. Music, you could play music. Photos is an example. And Magnifier, which is another way to turn on a magnifying glass to be able to see the screen larger or smaller. Okay. So to get into assistive access, once that setup process is complete, which I said does take a little while, so you might want to wait till August to go, or you can come in and see me or Bobski. You know, you could come in and see us during one of the lab sessions, and we could help you set it up as well. But you go into settings, you go into accessibility, you go into assistive access, tap Start Assistive Access, and then you enter in a passcode. So you do have to set up a passcode. Okay. And then once if you want to get out of it and you want to go back to the old way your iPhone used to look, you can triple click the side button or triple click the home button if you've got an older phone. Tap Exit Assistive Access. And then it's going to ask you to enter your passcode again, your unique passcode for assistive access. And once you do that, it turns it off. Okay. So again, just in summary, the assistive access, right, is designed to assist those that might have some sort of an impediment that would allow them to more effectively use their phone by giving them a more simplified user interface, similar to what you would see. I mean, all Jitterbug is really is an Android phone with a with a simplified user interface on it. So it allows the iPhone to look simpler, like some of the other phones you might have seen out there in the marketplace. Okay. Okay. So what I wanted to use the time for now are really any questions that you may have. Like I said, I didn't want to go in it. I'm sure I did kind of a data dump on y'all, so I didn't want to go diving into two more other features. I've really only scratched the surface of some of the things you can do with this feature, with this capability. So I'm going to open it up to questions.
I have a question.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to get out of it, you triple click, and that means that the phone goes back and looks just like it did before and has everything it did before.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One thing that wasn't mentioned on that first homepage was contacts. Does it still exist somewhere else?
That's a great question.
Because that would be pretty important.
Set to
Yeah.
119%. Speaking rate
That's
set to 96%.
Somebody's has their microphone turned on. So I'm not sure. Was that Toby? Toby's
Yeah.
iPad? Okay.
Right.
That's a great question. These are the features that come up, but you would think that you would want to be able to add a contact in there. So I'd have to go back and research on that because I haven't activated this feature to see if I would assume so, but I don't know if it's buried. It might be buried within one of these other ones. For example, it might be buried within calls.
Right.
Or when you're within the calling app, that you can go ahead and access your contacts and add a new contact. Unless somebody else, like Bosky, unless you're in there and you can see whether or not they have access to contacts, I can't believe they wouldn't within assistive access.
Well, my guess is that if you go to calls, you can probably indirectly access your contacts there. That would be my guess. I haven't set this up.
Yeah. No, it's a great question, though. And
Also,
I can certainly look into that. And I don't know, Daryl, if we could put that into our website or how we could communicate that to the folks.
I'll fiddle with it and see here in just a second.
Okay.
So basically, you put it in senior citizen mode, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give it a try. Who was having troubles getting out of the Zoom? Not our Zoom call, but the Zoom on the phone. Who?
The Zoom feature.
Yeah.
It was Patricia.
Okay. The secret is to do a triple three-finger tap really quickly. I mean, as fast as you can do it. Tap, tap. And it will take away the Zoom.
The other solution was to restart the phone.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And which is a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah,
Susan,
you have to ignore the zooming, so.
Susan, are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, these are three very quick questions. I have sort of an old phone, quite an old phone, in fact, and I'd like to know if you buy a new phone and you move all the information from your old phone into a new one, will all those settings that you're talking about stay on there, or do you have to redo all of that?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a great question.
That was one question.
That's a great question, Susan.
This is Toby.
Okay.
I got phones not too long ago, and everything switches over, but some of the things that you have set up have to be set up again. I mean, it's in there to choose, but they go back to default, and I can't tell you which ones they are. Sometimes you just check.
Okay. Now here's another question. You were talking in the beginning about that you could use a keyboard. I've heard this before, that you could use a keyboard with your phone.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Could you tell me a little more about how that works? Keeping in mind that I use a PC, but it would be nice to be able to get a message onto my phone without having to use the phone to type it in.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's possible if my phone is an iPhone.
Yeah. So before I dive into that, hey, Ken, are you still on here? Is Ken on there still? He may not be on there anymore. So Ken, last time Ken was in,
Ken's on there.
Ken's on? Okay. So last week, I guess I was, we played around with there's two features on your iPhone that could help you with text messaging, as an example. One is to turn on dictation.
Yes, I know about that one.
Mm-hmm. So that way you can go ahead and press the microphone button in the messaging app, speak into your phone, and it will turn it into a text message.
Right.
Okay.
I know about that one.
Okay. And that's a pretty simple one to use. The other capability the other capability it gives you is the ability to record a voice message. So instead of sending text to another person, you could literally record a voice message, press send, and it will notify the other person that they got a message, but it will play your voice instead of a text message.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So those are two kind of neat features that don't require you to buy an external keyboard. Okay. Now, I'll preface this by saying, and Bobski might be able to have more experience in this. The last time I used a keyboard was with an iPad. I've never used one with my iPhone. I know it works, but so I'm just going to speak to an iPad. In an iPad scenario, there's in Bluetooth, if you've got, as an example, it's very simple. If you've got Apple sells keyboards for iPads. Okay. They're very expensive, but they work very, very well. But you could buy a third-party Bluetooth keyboard, and you could, in Bluetooth, when you set up a Bluetooth device on your iPhone, so you go into the Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth tab on your iPhone, and you can go ahead and set your keyboard into pairing mode. It will find it, and it will attach it to your iPhone. And then you can go ahead and use that keyboard to type in text, as an example, if you want to send a text message. Now, if you do that, you still use the iPhone to actually send the text message. So all the buttons and everything in your iPhone you would continue to use. You just wouldn't have to use the on-screen keyboard on your iPhone. You would use the keyboard, the external third-party Bluetooth keyboard, to type in your message.
So if I'm hearing this, I'm thinking that you always have to be in an Apple environment in order to do this.
No, you can buy, as an example, I have a keyboard at home that's a Logitech keyboard that can connect up to 3 devices through Bluetooth. I can connect simultaneously to 3 devices. Right now it's connected to my MacBook Pro, but I could very easily connect it to my iPad or my app or my iPhone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good to see you, by the way, Susan.
Oh, thank you. I'm often here in the dark.
Yes, you are. Any other questions?
A lot, but I think we can't do them right now. I think this just takes some. We have to play around with it for a while.
Yeah, and it's
a good session.
That's what I hope to do during the next session in August, was actually have people, say, hey, okay, we're going to go ahead and here's a feature. We're going to all try it, see how it works. Did that other person, or was that you, Susan? Who did that other person? Were they able to get their Zoom turned off on their iPhone?
That wasn't me.
Okay.
She had left somewhere in the midst of this.
Oh, okay.
Maybe she was using her phone and couldn't get to it.
Oh,
Um, for this assistive access, somebody asked about contacts. If you tap on it to turn it on, it walks you through a configuration and setup process. And one of the steps in that process is to select the apps you want on your screen, and
Right.
Contacts is one of those apps.
Okay. So I didn't pick it up on this screenshot, but it's there. Good.
Yeah, there's almost any of the apps on your phone. The list was really, really long.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
point, Bobsky. And maybe why is it says, if I would have read the top of this here, these apps have been optimized
right.
and may include additional features, but it's certainly not inclusive of all the apps that you could have
Right.
enabled
When I
under
set
us.
it up,
Yeah.
it presented this short list of apps, and then down below that, or maybe it was in the next menu, it
Yeah.
had all of the apps on my phone that you could also add.
Okay.
And Contacts was one of those.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you. The other thing I'm going to say too is, and Bobsky, I think you have some insight in this, is there's this Apple Intelligence, right, that you hear a lot about. And so it can mean a number of things, but one of the things that it's going to affect dramatically is Siri. And it's the ability for Siri to do more things and become more and more powerful. What I would envision is that in the not too distant future, that most of the things that I talked about today could be activated by simply telling your voice assistant Siri to activate and use that feature. Okay. Would you agree with that, Bobsky?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole subject of Apple Intelligence, which also stands for AI, which is kind of cool, is another whole big thing. But I will say that it's kind of underwhelming at the moment. So if you're considering going out and buying an iPhone 16 just because it supports Apple Intelligence, it's definitely not worth it. So,
Right.
but the
Right.
coming, and now they're saying sometime in 2025 and sometime in 2026 they'll have it's hard to explain. It's an AI based Siri, so you can chat with it just like you can chat with the AI chatbots today. And I've seen demos of it, but it won't be around for at least another year or so. So don't worry about it. I don't know. Did that answer your question, John?
Yeah. It did. But the other thing I'll say is that's great if for people that have the well, let me do the flip of this. My buddy that has aphasia, that's probably not going to help him, right? Because he wants to do, he has better use of his fingers than he does his voice oftentimes, right? So, Siri is voice activated, right? So, but if you have problems with your speech, right, then using Siri may not be your best approach. It might be one of these other assistive access features might be better suited for you.
John,
Ken,
you
yeah,
want to stop the screen share if we're
yeah,
done with that part?
I will.
Thank you.
There we go. Ken, you're being awfully quiet, bud. Any questions? Ken, your microphone's muted, Ken. We can't hear you. You're still muted. Can we unmute him?
And now I can ask him to unmute. Let me try that.
Whoops. What did this do?
There. Can you hear me
There we
now?
go. Yeah, we can hear you, Ken.
Oh, all right. This is very deep for me. There's a lot of, I look at it and blows my mind how much more stuff that this crazy little box has. But so it's really beyond what a lot of features and stuff I probably wouldn't use, but it's just interesting to hear it and see what's all on there. So I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. That's good.
Yep.
Any other questions? Otherwise, Daryl, I guess we could end this
Yeah, I'm
early.
going to go ahead and stop the recording if there's no other. Oh, Susan has a question.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to ask a general question. If we try something and we don't like it, all we have to do is click that same button and it will undo it. Is that correct? If we turn on something,
yeah.
and
In
we
most
don't like it,
cases, yep. In most cases, if you've got the notes, just so for the features that I talked about, if you get the notes, it's the document. It'll tell you how to turn it on and how to turn it off. Okay. In most cases, it's pretty easy to turn off. In most cases, it's just a little toggle switch, and you toggle it off, and then it's turned off, and it no longer works.
so how does one know when it's not the case, when it's not a toggle?
In some cases, if it's not a toggle, as I mentioned earlier, it would be either a triple click on your phone on the button on the right side, the top button on the right hand side. You triple click that, or you triple click the home button if you've got an older phone, and that would allow you to turn it off.
Yeah, I was just thinking of people who find it difficult to triple click.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So that's a good point. If I would say if you're not comfortable with a particular feature, then probably two options. Either maybe the best thing to do would be not use the feature until you're with somebody that you think can get you out of it if you're afraid you're going to get into something that you can't get out of until you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think it's important to hear that, because then otherwise we get in a situation where we don't really want to use that feature and we want to revert and find it difficult to revert. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you.
All right. Looks like we're wrapping up. So thanks everybody for attending. And look for John's in-person class in August 19th, I think it was said, if you want to get a little more experience with some of these features.
Thanks,
well,
everyone.
friends, that's a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed this video today. Hey, before you go, if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to know when the latest SCTC video comes out, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.